Nigerian politics, like in every other country, can be likened to a game of chess. It is a world where actors have a universal language. However, ambition, strong character, and a fighting spirit can never be in short supply, or else you are checkmated. Unfortunately, politics to some people is a means to an end, but for others, it is service to humanity, one that cannot be taken for granted or with levity. For Senator Magnus Abe, it is a call to duty, a thoroughbred politician who built an enduring legacy for his people in Rivers State, a one-time Rivers State House of Assembly member and former Commissioner of Information in Rivers State, and one who has served as a senator for the Rivers Southeast Senatorial District. Senator Magnus Abe writes on a mantra which centers on the consequences of your actions being dependent on your attitude towards life. Magnus Abe was born on 24 May 1965 in Eleme, Rivers State. His formative years aside his formal education was largely influenced by his father, who was a cleric, and naturally, certain traits were formed.
Well, over the years, you have had an interesting personality, you have had an interesting journey into different fields, especially when we talk about law and politics. But before we go into all that, can you relive some of the memories, childhood memories of yours, those things that maybe can never get out of your mind, but in significant way help to shape your ideals and your character?
Well, first of all, I would say that one of the most important formative influence on my life was my late father, Reverend Canon Apollos Lekaga Abe. He was in many ways a different kind of person. His views, given the nuances of the time, were sometimes radical in the way he approached bringing up children. One of the first and most enduring lessons that my father taught me and taught all of us is that everybody has his own life to live, and nobody will live your life for you. And whatever you make of the life you have, that is the life you have. So if I have a headache, my father may sympathize with me, but he's not going to feel the pain. If you don't go to school and you end up without the ability to provide for yourself, that will be your problem. That will not be his own problem. So if you're not able to solve your own problems and overcome your own obstacles and build your own life, it is actually your problem. It is nobody else's problem but yours. And my father he said that almost every day, that I will not live your life for you, I will not live your life for you. So you got to understand that your life essentially was your own, and making the best out of it is actually your responsibility.
Growing up in a parsonage with his 5 older siblings was a humbling experience, but most importantly, an advantage, one that made him realize and imbibe 2 major things: respect for humanity and an ample understanding of Nigerians.
My father was an Anglican priest, and as at that time, Anglican pastors were very poorly paid, but we had a lot of respect in the community as the children of a pastor. There was a certain level of expectation were placed on you as a child of a pastor, which we didn't meet all the time anyway. But that placed some burden on you with your dealings with others, because you're supposed to reflect the epitome of your Christian upbringing. So my father was actually quite poor. He was paid about £90 a month in those days. And then we didn't just grow up in one place. The good thing about the Anglican Church then was that everywhere where they sent their pastors to, they had a parsonage, a reasonable place where the pastor and his family could live. So we went to different parishes, and as he was promoted, you get to man bigger churches, and then the dioceses were quite large. So the Niger Delta Diocese, to which my father belonged or worked for, extended all the way up to Calabar. So at some point we lived in Calabar, at some point we lived in Okrika, at some point we lived in Yege. So I grew up substantially in the midst of people. So I understand Nigerians, and I know that this is a great country, and that in those days you could be at home anywhere you found yourself. The fact that you were not a native was really never an issue. And I have friends across the entire length and breadth of this country, because I understand that human beings substantially are all the same. Everybody is struggling to make the best they can out of life, and people extend a helping hand to one another regardless of your relationship or the origin of that relationship. So that was instrumental to how we grew up. And also because we were so, I wouldn't say we were poor in the sense in which I understand poverty now, because we always had food to eat. We had food to eat. We didn't have luxuries. We didn't have shoes or slippers, but at that time, almost all the people around us also didn't wear shoes, so it wasn't a big deal. We didn't feel deprived in any way. I mean, we had rice for Christmas when everybody else had rice for Christmas, and we got new clothes for Christmas most years. So it really wasn't that kind of poverty, excruciating poverty that you see around you now. It was a genteel kind of poverty where you were forever in debt, but you knew you could manage.
And you knew you could survive.
And you knew you were surviving. We're healthy. We're not malnourished in any way. So I think my father did a good job given the circumstances. And later he left the church and went into politics. And that exposed us to a different kind of world and a different kind of society. So it was an interesting childhood.
A lawyer by profession, Magnus Abe's earliest private practice was as a junior partner with Okocha and Okocha Manu Chambers. But as time went on, he found another calling, engineered by a client.
I think the influence of my father was a member of the River State House of Assembly, and I did go around with him to campaign as a young boy. So I was exposed to politics. I knew all the whole greetings and hailings of politics and, the antics of the soapbox in those days. I went around with him when he campaigned in the constituency. So I had a fair idea of what politics was. But a friend of mine, a client of mine from Edo State, was actually running for governor in Edo State, Chief Dan Obi. And he invited me to come and be his campaign director.
That was in which year now?
This was during the UNCP era.
Oh, okay.
So I left my chambers and actually followed him to Edo State and campaigned with him all across Edo State. We had to drop manifestos. We have to, we tried to create a buzz, and he was very young at the time, and he wanted, so that was how I got involved in UNCP politics. So when I came back from that experience, and my people came to me to ask me to run for the House of Assembly, I was mentally, emotionally, and psychologically prepared to take on that challenge, because I knew what politics was. I had been exposed to it by being part of a fledgling gubernatorial campaign in another state. So we took it on, and then by the grace of God, I was elected, and I subsequently became the minority leader of the River State House of Assembly at the time the assembly was inaugurated.
A request transformed into a passion, and Magnus took on more responsibility. An order of approval from his people further confirmed his yearnings and aspirations. Through different facets, Magnus Abe steadily climbed up the ladder.
The second term of Dr. Peter Odili appointed me a commissioner. I was the River State Commissioner for Information under Dr. Odili. And then later, Right Honorable Amechi appointed me Secretary to Government. And then from there, I came to Abuja as a senator. That's the story.
Okay, interesting. Now, looking at politics now, the political landscape now, what were the ups and what were the the downsides for you? You know, we know politicians can be very, you know, they move with the tide. And at some point, you also moved with the tide. What were those things, what were those principles that guided you in your path?
I think whether we like it or not, Nigerian politics has changed over the years. At the time my father was a member of the House of Assembly, your election or lack of it was something that was totally left with the communities. You know, if you were not acceptable to the broad majority of your constituents, you couldn't dream of running for office. And most times, the leaders would go and call somebody who they know who had the reputation and the confidence of the community to come and run, because they are sure that that person would win. You know, my father was invited in that respect because of his activities in the community in Gokana at that time. They insisted that he should run, and he ran. And it was the same way people came to call me, because they felt that I had the reputation within the community, and then I was marketable. You could be sold to the people. And in those days, when you ran for election, when I ran for election, I knew the house of every prominent person in Gokana. I visited every human being. I knew their names. You'd sit down with them. It was a different kind of politics. It was all about the people, you know. And when you were elected, you were forced to maintain those relationships. You did not simply get elected and then overnight you become a lord, and then everybody else is trekking, you're driving 10 cars automatically. It didn't work that way at that time. And your election was mostly funded by the community. People contributed and offered their time and their resources. That's how you came. But as soon as the politicians took over the government and we started running the government started paying for politics. So now the governors sit down and decide who should run, the leader decides who should run, and then the leader pays for everything. And then people simply even are now used to even collecting money from those that are running for office or those that are in office. In our time, when we started politics in 1999, the reverse was the case. And if you look at all those who had previously been elected, very few of them actually had money, because that wasn't an important criteria for getting elected. Your acceptability within the community, your commitment to the community, the trust of the community were the critical elements that, you know, got you into office. But today, the first thing everybody asks is, how much does he have?
In the midst of the quagmire, Magnus Abe remains eternally grateful for the opportunity given to him. He is one out of many who rides on the glory of his people's mandate. He insists a change can only manifest if the citizenry are involved in decision-making.
At the core of every challenge remains the process by which you pick your leaders. Because whether you like it or not, everything in every society is determined substantially by the quality of leadership. So I believe that if we readjust the electoral process in such a way that the people actually get the power back, you know, to determine those who lead, then it is automatic that a lot of the people who are in power today will not be if the people have the power to decide. Apart from that, the behavior of those in power will also change automatically, because when you ask the people to choose, you may think that the ordinary people are not so smart, but they're actually much smarter than a lot of us who hold positions. When you see Boris Johnson entering the train and riding bicycle and all that, it's not because he doesn't like Rolls Royce. It's because he knows that that is what will please the voters, and he needs their approval to stay in office. So if you introduce a situation in Nigeria where you can only hold office at the pleasure of the people, and they can remove you whenever you're up and they don't want you, everybody will have to adjust their behavior, because you can't buy everybody. Then it will be impossible for any governor to sit down in his office and handpick every member of the House of Assembly. It will also be impossible for any godfather to sit down and singularly determine the fate of everybody. In such a situation, even the godfathers will have to humble themselves, because you never know what the people will decide. The governors will humble themselves, and those who hold office will know that they hold office at the pleasure of the people. So if there is a conflict between you and the governor, you know that it's not automatic that you're going to lose your job. Your people could keep you if the conflict, they feel that you're facing that conflict in their own interest, even against the wishes of the powers that be. And so the temptation to monopolize the resources of the community and use it to compromise the institutions, to in any particular person's advantage or favor, would dwindle over time.
For Senator Magnus Abe, fairness and being just in his dealings with people is like an oath of allegiance. He believes in making an impact which reflects his style, and maintains that this should be a deliberate act by all for a better Nigeria.
Every day when I wake up, I don't see life as a journey to a particular destination. I believe that in life, the journey itself is the destination. So you don't have to wait until you get to the Senate before you can contribute to your society. You don't have to wait until you're a governor before you can do what you need to do or what you feel you can do. You do it every day when you wake up. You do it in your communication. You do it in the examples that you set for others. You do it in the advice that you give to people who come to you for advice. You do it in your interaction with other people. I was talking to somebody yesterday. I said, no, you never tell people that you're a man of integrity. People will say that you're a man of integrity based on their interaction with you. What I tell my children is that it is important that they know that they are living their own life. And I don't try to relive my life through any of my kids. I'm living my own life. They have their own to live. What is important to me is that they understand how important it is to be a good human being, and that there is no wish in life that if you just sit down and say you want it, you're not going to get it. Whatever you want in life takes effort and sacrifice and hard work. That's how you get things. So if I sit down today, I look at Nigerians sometimes and I just shrug my head. If we want a better country, it can't be a wish. It has to be something that you have to have enough people actively waking up every day, struggling to make the country better. That's the only way the country can get better. Great nations, great cities are not created. They're not just made. They're built by the effort and sacrifice of people. So are great lives too. So I don't want to tell my children what they can be or what they're going to live in a different world from the one that I have. I want them to be prepared for their own life and, be able to give of their best. And in the process, not just create prosperity, but share in the prosperity that they create. And this is not just for my children. I sometimes invite young people around me and I try to share my ideas and my thoughts with them, because anything that you don't give to another person, you lost it, in terms of ideas and all that.
Thank you very much. I think at this point we'll take a walk, and at least you show me one or two things, how you relax and all that, and still keep it and still look as young as you're looking. Normally, how does your day start?
Well, I start my day, get up in the morning, I drink some water, I take my medication, and then I go through my phone, respond to some messages, the ones I can respond to. Then I do a little, spend a little time with myself and my God. And then I drink water, I drink vegetable smoothies, and then I come out and do a little exercise in the sun.
In the sun? But why in the sun? It's actually very funny. A lot of people do exercises in the morning, though you're considering the Abuja sun.
I do exercise in the sun because I believe that all energy comes from the sun. So a lot of times, those of us who live close to the sun, we don't actually get the benefit of the sun. We don't expose ourselves to the sun, But people who don't live close to the sun understand the value of the sun, so they look for it, but we take it for granted.
Okay.
So I try not to take it for granted. So I come out and I do my exercise in the sun.
Now, a quick one before we do you show us a little bit of your exercise routine. What would be your advice for youths, especially those who want to go into politics or those who want to venture into something profitable, business or otherwise?
It's difficult to advise people when you don't know their circumstances and you don't know their individual situations. But the one advice that I think that fits everybody's mood is that you need to understand that this is your life. And making the best out of it is your responsibility. It's nobody else's responsibility. I told this to a young man once and he said, oh, what of those who don't know Senator, who don't know? I said, no, you don't need to know anybody. It doesn't matter what your condition is. It doesn't matter what your situation is. It doesn't matter what your challenges and your obstacles are. Every reason you have that gives you an excuse to fail is another person's reason for celebration. Because success is when you overcome your challenges and if there was no writing of exam, there will be no passing. So you just have to get out there and realize that this is your life and give it the best shot that you can give to it. That's just the one advice I know that will fit anybody in any circumstances. This is your life. You have to make the best of it.
And then we're talking about the Rivers politics, the topside of it, the
Rivers politics is no different from politics in any other part of this country.
Are you sure?
But the situation in Rivers State has been excavated by the responses and the behavior that some of us as leaders have put forward. I believe that if we change our tone, we change our responses, we introduce some civility into what we do, and understand that at the end of the day, really, what is it all about? If it's about helping the community, about supporting people, about helping yourself, about doing what is right, you don't have to break your head for all that now. You do the one you can and leave the one you can't. Yes.
Yeah. So, thank you very much. So just show us a little bit about your routine. But
the
sun, I'm not friends with the sun, but
I love the sun.
But it's really funny that.
So I do some skip rope like this.
All right. Okay. I think the last time I did this was probably when I was in primary school, but I've not tried it recently. I don't know how my weight will be.
I do that.
Okay.
And then
I can note that for you.
And then I work on my abs a lot.
Okay.
So I do sit-ups and press-ups.
Okay.
And I do different moves to exercise different parts of the body. Something like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, like this. I do all those moves. I do planks, like this. I do sit-ups in different formats, like this.
Wow. Okay.
I do that. I do press-ups like this.
All right.
I do that.
Interesting routine. Interesting routine.
I do different routines.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. It's been interesting meeting you one-on-one, and it's been Senator Magnus Abe. Next week is another edition of the program Inspirators. Until then, God bless you and take care of yourselves.